All right, everyone, part two for week five's instructions. And just a quick note, I was just looking through my email and there was an email from our chancellor, who is the whole boss of the entire Lone Star College system, with some information regarding the tropical storm that may make its way here over the next week. So I really encourage you to make sure that you are keeping in touch with what's going on in your classes via D2L, see any announcements or updates. I'll provide those in my class. You'll probably get those in other classes. But also take a look at your student email for any other kinds of updates. And just generally, it's a good idea to make sure that you are opted into the emergency notification system. So log into my Lone Star and just kind of double check that. You'll get a text message should the system shut down, or whatever the case may be. It's too early to kind of tell what the full impact will be, but just keep an eye on things. Okay, so let's get back to what we're responsible for in week number 5. So in our content area, I'm going to scroll down to the writing journal. You can also get there by going up to the top, of course, and finding that through collaboration and going to discussions. Okay, but week 5, the writing journal this week, I really want you to focus again on the distinguishing facts from misinformation chapter in our course text. It's a really, it's a good time right now to find information because there's so much available online and digitally, but that also means that things are even more complicated in terms of ensuring that those sources are accurate and factual, because you can go online and find answers for any number of things, but you have to make sure that you're doing a little bit of research to determine that the source you're using is trustworthy. If you Google search something, you can get the first 5 results in Google or Bing or whatever you're using to search. The first 5 could just be personal blogs, or they could be intentional misinformation sites to give you answers that aren't true, right? But that feed into, elements of fear or misinformation generally. So it's a great time to do research because so much is available at our fingertips digitally, but that also means that there is an extra step of work we have to do to make sure that the research that we use and that we find, especially for academic purposes, is factual, right? And comes from sources that are reliable, that follow some sort of guidelines in terms of, are there fact checkers, are there editors, are there people that are a part of the process versus just one person sitting in their room or their office typing bogus information, right? So we have to do a little bit of digging. So it's more work for us, but again, it saves time generally to do research online. So it all evens out. So our writing journal for this week is having us think about distinguishing those facts, right? I do want you to note that I offer some information about a quotation that's used in our course text, right? So fake news and false rumors reach more people, penetrate deeper into the social network, and spread much faster than accurate stories. Okay, and then I have QTD period in Lunsford, who is our editor, and then the page number. I want you to notice that all of this is in the parentheses and the period goes after. So I'm using this quote because I think it's important and relevant, but also because I want it to be an example of quoting, okay? So I include this because it's information that helps us understand how to use resources, right? So this is a quote that's from MIT, a study that was done by MIT, which is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And this is a well-respected university, a well-respected study. So it's not just some random quote from a random place that we can't cite, right? So when we do research essays, we need to pull information from respected sources, trustworthy sources. So the first thing I do in the writing journal prompt is kind of walk through how to actually quote and what I've done with the quote here. So I'll give you some time to read through that on your own. We'll dig a little bit more deeply into MLA with each week, as I mentioned before. And I put here, academic writing, it requires us to use sources that support our ideas. It can't just be us writing about some topic and sharing our opinions or the things we kind of know, but maybe not for certain. I mentioned in that annotated bibliography video, if you're given a research paper in a history class on the Vietnam War, it's not supposed to be just a paper full of information that you have on your own, right? You may know a lot about the Vietnam War, and that's great, but where did you learn all of that information? You need to include the citations to support your ideas. And that becomes also avoiding plagiarism. You cite your sources to ensure that all the ideas and information you include from those outside sources, you're not taking credit for those inadvertently, because that's when you start to get into issues and problems with plagiarism, especially with academic writing, okay? So for this week, after reading this chapter, I want you to first, in your own words, define attribution bias. That's something that our editors, Lunsford, goes over, and also confirmation bias. So these need not be full paragraphs, but you need to, in your own words, define both of these as you understand them from our reading. And then finally, I say, let's go through the investigative process, right? Lunsford and the editors in this chapter talk about the different steps we need to walk through in order to ensure that we're using reliable research and using that correctly. So let's do that with the video we're going to watch for Friday's reading response. So this is a link to that video, and that video, the page also includes some information that will help us determine what kind of source this is, right? So write a paragraph describing how you investigate each of the steps for Finley's work, and that is triangulate, determine trustworthiness, and then ask questions and check for evidence. Okay, so that's kind of the three steps we kind of need to make sure that we're going through. I don't know what happened with my chair. The three steps we need to make sure that we're going through with sources and determining whether we should use them to support our ideas in research papers or we should not. Okay, so write a paragraph describing how you investigated each of those steps. Okay, so be specific. Where did you go? What did you do? How did you determine this? What did you discover? Okay, so I put here, just to reiterate, because I get this question a lot, like how many paragraphs? So a sentence or two for your own definitions, okay, for the biases, and then one paragraph for each of the steps above. So that's 3 paragraphs, okay? Lastly, I want you to create 2 thoughtful, thought-provoking questions for your colleagues to answer, and that's going to be due by Friday. Your questions are due Wednesday. Your responses to one another are due by Friday. And so these can be questions related to our course text reading on misinformation. You can talk about, hey, did you look at that picture with Putin included and then Putin not included? What did you think about that? So it can be something specific from our course text reading, or it can be something related to the investigative process that you went through to determine Finley as a source, right? And then that whole website as a source, right? It's not just Finley as a source, but where you found the Finley video, that's a source as well, okay? So you'll need to respond to both of those. And I put, please ensure you're keeping up with your reading journal, because that is an assignment that's due on Sunday, and that's going to be due in the assignments area of D2L. So just to jump ahead a little bit, I'm going to scroll up. If you go to course activities, one of the options is assignments. And if you click on that, and again, yours is going to look a little bit different than mine, you click on your reading journal, and this is where you will go to upload your reading journal assignment. So mine doesn't even look like what you will look like. You will have an option when you look at when you click on this link to upload, and you will then upload your single document that includes all the entries for the readings for week 3, week 4, and week 5. Okay, so you upload it in .doc or .docx format. Please revisit the video or the assignment guidelines just to refresh your memory before you submit. Okay, so going back to the content area for week number 5, the reading response then, I'm scrolling. The reading response is then related to Finley's talk specifically, okay? I put here, Finley uses some adult language. We are adults, it's okay, but if you have littles, get them out of the room if you're worried about them hearing this language. So first, in a paragraph of about 6 to 7 sentences, summarize Finley's ideas. So just a basic summary, he said this, and this, right? You need to watch the whole video and make some decisions about what you would include in a 6 to 7 sentence summary, okay? Next, in a paragraph, I want you to identify what Finley's claiming. So going back to some of the things that we've read for this week and in previous weeks, what is his claim, right? What is the argument that he is creating, okay? So also include the evidence that Finley uses to support his claim, okay? So his talk it's more than just an argument, but he does have this claim and he supports it with some information, but there's more to his talk than just that. But I want you to first start there. So we need to kind of assess this by citing the claim, the evidence, right? And I want us to look from an investigative perspective. So I'm just the facts. This is not us making any judgments. This is just us trying to find this information as using Finley's talk as a source, right? Additionally, in a paragraph, that's when we're going to start bringing in our own information and our own understanding, right? So in an additional paragraph, bring in our ideas about what we saw and heard. Did you have any personal connections? Do you or your family grow your own food? Can you relate to what Finley identifies and where he comes from? Even though he's coming from South Central LA, there's probably a lot that we recognize from our own space in Houston. Why or why not? So make sure you're being complete, right? And finally, I want you to choose a quote from his talk that's relevant, and always use quotation marks. So I put, we want to be accurate, so you don't have to write down everything he says as he says it, because there is a transcript included. So you can click on the transcript option, which is located under the actual video section, okay? So why did you choose this quote? Just a few sentences to support your quote, and how it's relevant. So this response is due by 11:59 p.m. on Friday. You need to make sure that you're responding to 2 of your colleagues in the writing journal, and that's due at the same time. So again, this is where that calendar comes in. Plan ahead. And then also, of course, remember your reading journal is due, and that's in the assignments area of D2L. I'll create and post a link in the content area for the assignment, but it's also it's good to get used to where to go and what to do. So again, in course activities, click assignment. And then once you click this, it will go to a page that offers you the opportunity to upload your document there. So make sure it's in the proper format. I can only grade what I can open. I can't open anything other than Word format or PDF. What I also want you to make sure that you're doing is make sure that you see the document and that you submit it. But what's one really good feature about D2L is that it sends you a confirmation email when you successfully submit an assignment. So make sure you get that email in D2L. Make sure that there's that confirmation, okay? It's going to be your responsibility to make sure that this is submitted properly, okay? I have students that will submit multiple copies of their assignment just to make sure that they've done it properly. Just make sure you're selecting the correct document. So title your document something useful like week 3 to 5 reading journal or something that's identifiable. And then when you go to upload it, make sure that it appears and you click the submit button. This is going to make sense when you see it, so don't worry too much about that. But again, a great way to double check that you've submitted the work properly is to get that confirmation email from D2L that you have something that you submitted in the assignments area. Okay, if you have some questions, please feel free to use the Q&A portion of the discussion area. You can always send me an email. I welcome those. But again, if you're going to send me an email about a question, why not post in the Q&A section? I'll be keeping up with that as often as I'm able. All right, y'all, good luck this week and take care. Stay dry.